Good afternoon, everybody, and welcome to ISAS for the ISAS NIICE panel discussion that is taking place today on the subject of Nepal in transition, domestic political change, economic priorities, and foreign policy in a multipolar world. I think we all, insofar as our focus on South Asia is concerned, we do realize that often the bigger countries of South Asia, especially India, tends to take up more of our attention for a variety of reasons, which we are more or less aware of why it happens that way. But there are countries in South Asia which by themselves are distinct in the roles that they are playing in the current multipolar world order, and also in terms of the challenges that they are facing in carrying out these roles. There are a number of issues that are connected to their domestic political and economic development trajectories, because there are changes that have happened in the world and in the region which have impacted the big and small alike, and South Asia is no exception to that. In that respect, Nepal is a very interesting country because not just it occupies a particular geography and has certain geographical characteristics while being landlocked, while being positioned at a certain altitude at which the entire geoeconomic profile changes with respect to the countries, but also because of the neighbors that it has, also because of the very pivotal role it has played historically in the region, the connections with India, the connections with a variety of other countries, even outside of South Asia. And lately, because of the domestic political developments that Nepal has witnessed, which I think have become subjects of international discourses right now. And Nepal is not the first one in South Asia to experience that. I'm not sure whether I should say it will not be the last one. That will be too much of a provocative statement to make, but it may not be the last one. So one important thing for us over here at ISAS, between me and my colleagues, is that we often discuss about subjects that transcend the general spaces of one individual country, and especially when it concerns the youth, when it concerns the political climate, when it concerns development. I think these are issues that transcend borders and cut across the general profile of the region in a very significant way. And there are a lot of commonalities that we discover when we talk about these things, including frustrations, aspirations, wishful thinking, and so on and so forth. So in that respect, it's great that today we have the Nepal Institute for International Cooperation and Engagement with us, being represented by two of their very prominent scholars, Dr. Shiv Shankar Shah, who is a visiting fellow at the NIICE, and also Dr. Pramod Jaiswal, who is a research director. And last but not the least, on my left is mostly always the right, Dr. Puspa Sharma, my good friend and colleague from ISAS. So between the three of them, I think we are going to have a very lucid understanding of what has happened in Nepal, what are the prognoses from these developments going forward. And if you go back and look at the theme, you will see that we are looking very closely at three specific dimensions of Nepal as it stands today: the domestic political change, the economic priorities, and foreign policy. So these are roughly the three main areas of discussion that we will have today. And we are going to have three specific presentations on all these three themes. This will begin from the political side. Dr. Shiv Shankar Shah will be making the first presentation, followed by Dr. Puspa Sharma, and then eventually Dr. Pramod Jaiswal. I think Dr. Shiv Shankar Shah is very well positioned to make the first presentation. He's the head of international relations at the Krupanidhi Group of Institutions in Bangalore, focusing on Nepal's domestic politics, especially the role of youth diplomacy. And he received his PhD in pharmaceutical sciences from Andhra University in India. And he has a trained background in science and applied science. And he's now obviously looking at politics through the eyes of an expert and a trained specialist in that respect. So Dr. Shah, over to you. And if we could have the presentations within about 15 to 20 minutes, then we can have a good amount of time for discussion. Over to you, Dr. Shah.
Thank you, Chairperson. Good afternoon to all. As Sir has already mentioned, the overview of the today's program. The part what I have received is the political side, as Sir has already mentioned too. So Nepal peaceful political transition, decline of traditional parties, and the rise of new political forces. So mainly this session will have three parts. Sir also explained. Nepal in transition, domestic political change, economic priorities, foreign policy in multipolar world. So my part is Nepal peaceful political transition. As we know, the world is watching us, not from the now, from the past. And that transition, what we have recently observed in Nepal, it is a change. It is a start. What has occurred, and what the next is happening, that is also the watch from the world. Today's I'll just cover historical route, anti dysfunction, how the Gen Z uprising, rise of new forces, 2026 verdict, challenges and outlook. If you see the past years, the Nepal democratic journey, 1995 till 2006, first we had Rana rule, as common everybody knows. Then when Rana rule ends, it was the BP Guerrilla who started Nepali Congress, founded in India itself when the independence was starting in India also. Rana rule ended and Panchayat system was started by King Mahendra. And when the protest started in 1960, the Panchayat system bans parties. So after BP Guerrilla with the 30 years, he was in jail also. Okay. Then in 1990, Jan Andolan democracy restored. And the country was quite a bit stable. And then if you see in that scenario also, the common people who were from different castes, the backward, they were not given the opportunities. Then again, 12 years of the most, as we know also, started protest, not in the like in the back, like let's say in jungle, almost 12 years they were. Many youth joined with the arms and change was started. Even though of the 12 years of such scenario, they came to the peace. It was signed in Delhi. Other parties were also signed for that. And then the peace agreement was done in Delhi when it was like in the monarchy. And the war ended. And they also came up with the ballot. They participated in the elections. Same time, they got a high majority and the country was stable. So in this period, if you see, there were 14 government in 16 years. The government was not stable. Change was always like each year, like 1 year, next government, next year, next government was theirs. Parties were combined, like two parties, they just want to rule the country. It was scenario. The second, corruption system. We might heard like the gold smuggling, Bhutanese refugees, scandals were there, airport scandals were there. So these cause like open to the media and a lot of people, but no investigation was there. Economic frustration. If you see in these GCC countries, mainly Dubai, Oman, Qatar, lot of levers they are working. So because of the brain drain also was there, which cause youth frustration. The youth want to stay in the country, but because of not the good governments, proper infrastructures, the road which were there, it was like took a lot of times. So this was the dysfunction of the government, and that caused the youth frustrated. And the Gen Z uprising started. It was not like the corruption was there, everything was there. If you see the alarm, it was take place 3 years back when RSP was founded by Ravi Lamcham actually. When Ravi Lamcham found the RSP and went for the election in past 3 years, last 3 years, they got 27 MPs. That was the alarm for the traditional political parties, but they didn't walk out. They ignored those. And even then, government side also, we were learning it was like different policy level they want to combine. Like if you see the Congress was different democratic, and then UML was like communist. They combined just to rule the countries. So people were frustrated. Nothing was like in good governments. The Gen Z protest, it was a peaceful movement in Mighty Ghar. The two young guy who like called the with the letter to proper permission and started. It was like ban of social media first. 26 social media was banned. Then protest start on the 8th. It was came to the Baneswar, and then the protest started like in corruption and a lot of things. Again, the bullet was fired, which made a lot of violence. It was that world was watching again in that day. 8th or 9th, what happened? All the protesters went to each government buildings, police department, everything were destroyed like anything. Army were dropped down, and PM only resigned same day at 2 p.m. September 13th, Parliament get dissolved by the president. In Gen Z uprising, almost 2,000 plus were injured. 75 were killed. It was the huge actually. If you see the past 12 years back when the mouse was there, okay, and Andolan, that protest happened 19 days when the king was there, only 19 were killed. But this is the highest in single day, that is 75. Loss of buildings almost around 586 million dollar million. This was because of the 35 years of frustration when the political parties and could not perform the demand of the youth, or let's say economic development was not there. Rise of new political parties, we commonly know Ravi Lamche, the founder of RSP, and then Balin Shah, Honorable Prime Minister. RSP was founded in 2022. He was a journalist who used to talk about the anti-corruptions, a lot of scandal. He used to take the voice in the medias, helping the immigrant in abroad to get safe landing in any problem. And then second, Balendra Shah, who is a young guy, 35 years. Firstly, he elected as a mayor of Kathmandu as anti-corruption. He was a rapper and he sang one song called Anti-Corruption Side. So he was most popular also during time. He won the Kathmandu mayor despite he didn't had any type of summit people, but the youth supported him, and the work what he has done in Kathmandu touched the people, and that was the message in entire country. So because of two people, anyway, one like it's like part of communication to the people what he has done with the Facebook rather than the traditional medias too, and the second, the party anyway political party is required for anything, and then they both combine and they went for the elections, which made highest majority, second highest majority after 1959. The first was in 1959 when the Nepali Congress came, and this is the second time the RSP has got highest MP. If you see the Nepal, like Tarai Hill and Himalayan region we have, and the areas close to the border area, that is called Madhesi's areas, among 32 seats, we have around 30 seats won by the RSP. If you see, this country is having the first time the prime minister from the Madhesi route. Balin belonged to Madhesi's route actually. So when the center is having the prime minister, definitely the regional parties in Madhesi's, there were around 10 to 15 years they used to get, and they could not perform. So definitely people were supporting to the the one who is going to be the prime ministers. Balin, honorable prime minister, was not only the face of the youth, it was face of the Madhesi because first time. And if you see the entire nation, it was not like the who is going to be contested in my areas for MP. It was like, no, Balin. The people only saw the face him and then voted to each. The one who contested the past 3 years back or like local election who was not getting the vote of 300, they got 30,000 in these elections. So people were behind him, trust was there. And in election 182 RSP, Nepali Congress 38, which was the like Nepali Congress ruling on the 40 years, they got only 38. UML 25, Communist 17, and others 13. This is the result of recent elections, which is a 2/3 majority to the RSP. Even if we combine all the other than that political parties, even the 30, not 30% more actually. So this is the highest, second highest after 1959. Fall of traditional parties, ideological, I told already, the, like even communist and then Democrat Party, Nepali Congress just combined to rule the country. So that again one going in the election with a different expectation. And then again after election, they combine just to fill their demand. Leadership, almost around 20 years, the people have the same faces as the prime ministers. It's like a musical chair for them, the three faces only. Like PM Oli, and then Serbau Deva, Prachanda, only these three faces were there. Ignore the warning because, last 3 years back, what the RSP got, 27 seat, they didn't make any correction. Corruption, that again, I already mentioned also. Airport corruption, gold smuggling, Botany repos is one among. If you see the bar diagram over here, UML, which was like 121 in the last 3 years, then again last 2 years, 78, again 25 in recent elections actually. Nepali Congress, the past 3 years back, what the election was held, 3 years back, and then 89 in the recent last election held, and then recent 138. So this is the how they fall down actually in the MPs. It's true, the RSP and the Honorable Prime Minister is young, new. Many have a question how he will rule the country, how he will maintain the geopolitical dimension among the foreign nations. And we have like India and China as neighbor. We don't have other options also. And how this will be balanced. So obviously, though he is young, but he is educated. And he has experience of 3 years while running the mayor of the Kathmandu, which is almost, I see around like 4 or 5 MPs election areas could be held. But if you see in his team, finance minister is Swarnim Wagle is there, Vikram Timsana, who is like alumni of Monash University, okay, in political science also. And a lot of advisors are there. He tried to do, and obviously he will do also. If you see the past 100 days, what he has done, it can have a clear message, the government is doing something. So India culture is same, economic, no visa. So almost more than 25 lakhs people working in India. And they maintain relations, not from now, from the past years. China, recently the BRI infrastructures are going on. And again, hydro or like airport, how will be done. So those are going on. It will be obviously a challenge, but they will solve it. US MCC investment are there from last 5 years. So it will be balanced properly. And recently ADB, 2 days back also, the fund was there to make the road transport and all. So they are balancing all the people, all the nations. In current ministry, only 2 are the well experienced. Other than 2, if you see the ministries, all are below 40 age. Economic pressure, as number of youth are in GCC countries. There was the mandate in the election also that they will call to the Nepal, but obviously they are planning to renovate the old industry which were closed. So they are planning to do those. IT investment are getting, data centers are going to build up. So definitely this will have a less economic pressure, and definitely it will be like good for the nation also. Popularism risks. So risks are like popularism. It's not only the like Facebook. We have to deliver in the practice actually. So what if you like any government work is like they're planning for digital and is doing also. The people who used to wait for the license around 5 years, the printed, now they are getting easily. Maximum this government's works are in digital. So corruption will be less. Challenge is that upper house, there is no MPs. Upper house, that is one challenge for the amendment of new laws. One challenge they have. Management expectation are there because again, like it is new, they are balancing also. A lot of, if you see currently, they have dissolved 15 political appointment and the new 1500 faces are coming up in the different government agencies. So that is the new based on the merit actually, their education qualification, their experience, their focus, their research they are going to appoint. So that is totally change in the nations. Obviously currently whatever are there, people are happy. At least 100 days the result they have shown. That is the one plus point. And the transition what Nepal has done, it is the watch for around the world. One message, the 2 days, what the bullet was there. People didn't imagine so suddenly within a 3 to 4 month, the country will be in the peaceful moment. Finally, the people, the political leaders, the past traditional political parties were there. They came with the ballot. That was the peace movement. They accepted also the elections. So that is the one message. So finally, in democracy, always ballot works. So RSP, neither it is like left or right. It is like totally transparency, anti-corruption. So people have one trust. The current government, whatever the Balin, like Honorable Prime Minister is doing, it is the work what he will do in this next 5 years will decide the next 5 years, the 10 years. So he's trying best and doing well. Every nation has a watch and definitely it will be good only. So this is what I have covered. And next, sir, next to the sir, thank you.
Thank you so much, Dr. Shah, for taking us through that political transition trajectory. And especially, I think what will engage considerable amount of attention of all of us is the rise of the new political forces and what do they entail for Nepalese politics going forward. We will come back to that understanding later. In the meantime, may I invite Dr. Puspa Sharma? And for those of you who are not familiar with Dr. Puspa Sharma, he's currently a senior research fellow at the Institute of South Asian Studies with us at NUS. Comes with almost 2 decades of experience in policy research on trade and development issues. He has been providing his expertise to the government of Nepal, several international organizations like ADB, UNSCAP, and the UN Office of the High Representative for Least Developed Countries. He has also been involved in very important public policy development-oriented exercises for the Nepal government, including the Nepal Trade Integration Strategy, the Trade Logistics Development Policy of 2022. He worked with an organization about whom many of you might be familiar, the ones who are particularly aware of research and voluntary organizations in South Asia. This is called the SAWTEE, SAWTEE, the South Asia Watch on Trade, Economics and Environment. And needless to say, he has extensive publications in peer-reviewed journals and also authored and reviewed edited books. He's a PhD from the Australian National University and a great individual and human being who have had the opportunity of knowing him up close. So, Puspa, all yours.
Thank you, Dr. Palit, for the kind words. Yeah, as it was pointed out earlier, in today's session, we are covering 3 broad issues: politics, economics, and foreign policy in Nepal's changed context. We heard about politics. I think I have a little bit of different view on to what like Dr. Shah has presented, but that's not the topic now. Of course, I'll go into mine. If the chair permits during Q&A rounds, perhaps we can also have a open discussion on the kind of things that we are presenting here among ourselves as well. But let me go on with the economic part of it, because economics is crucial. Also, if you look at it from the context of the Gen Z, the youth movement, because although the trigger for the movement was the social media ban, and there are many things to it, of course, there are several nuances and caveats that we have to look into. But yes, one of the things that the youth had been frustrated was about the lack of jobs in the country. So that was something that they had been looking for, because if you look at the number of youth that leave Nepal every day, that's, I mean, it is really very surprising. So lack of jobs is one extremely important issue for Nepal. And there is a latest survey that was done by a think tank in Kathmandu after the new government was formed to take a stock of how the people were thinking about the government going on and what their priorities were, what their expectations were from the government. So in this survey, they found, of course, that the people's first important priority and what they wanted the government to do was to address corruption and bad governance, to give them a sense of good governance in the country. And that is the platform, of course, on which the RSP fought the elections. And that was the number one thing that they had been saying to the people, and that's what the people have been expecting from them. But the second one after that was jobs. People want jobs in the country. And the third one, I think, was inflation, controlling inflation, because that's another thing that directly relates with the common people. Now, the importance of jobs for Nepal also comes from the fact that 2/3 of Nepal's population is in the working age group now. If you consider the population in the 15 to 64 age group, it is 65% of the total population. But the rate of unemployment is 10.5% of the total labor force. If you look at youth unemployment in particular, in the age group 15 to 24, it's 20.5% of the total labor force in that particular age group. And when you look at employment, even for the people who are employed, the data is that 77% of that employment is vulnerable. That is because most of this employment is in the informal sector. There are no social protection kind of things. So even that is vulnerable employment. So this perhaps gives a sense of the problem that Nepal will perhaps go through even further unless the government will be able to address the issue of jobs in the country. And as it was said earlier, for most of the Nepali youth, because when so many people are young and estimated like 250,000 to 400,000 people enter the labor force every year. That's the estimate. So where are they getting absorbed? They're getting absorbed abroad. These people mostly go to the Middle East, to the GCC countries, to Malaysia, to India, of course. To India, Nepali people have been going for like generations, including many of the Indians coming into Nepal for work. And we don't have data for that actually. Like how many people are there living in India, working in India? There's no data for that. So finding jobs abroad has been the major means for the youth. That's why that the young people have been living abroad, working abroad, and sending money home. Nepal has essentially become a remittance economy. If you look at the numbers, in the 10 months of this fiscal year, that's going to end soon, actually. We have the data for the first 10 months. Nepal's remittance received was 13 billion US dollars in the first 10 months of this fiscal year. Last fiscal year, the annual receipt was 12.5 billion. So already in this 10 months of this fiscal year, the receipt has gone beyond the annual receipt of last year. And last year, that 12.5 billion was 28% of GDP of the country. So in GDP terms, if you look at it and as a comparison, 28%. So this year, I think it's going to be around 30%. So you can gauge the importance of foreign work and remittances for Nepal. So what had happened earlier was that because so many of these Nepali youth were abroad sending money back home, and that was the lifeline for Nepal's economy, whereas on the other hand, people were fed up with frustration and frustrated with corruption, with bad governance at home, the narrative had been that Nepal's old guards, they were living on the remittances they were receiving from abroad. So these old guards were actually exporting youth out of the country and then living a comfortable life at home. They didn't have to bother about anything because jobs were already available abroad. Youth were going abroad, so they didn't have anything to do but then to receive that money, keep the economy afloat, and go on with the kinds of things that were going on. So the Rastriya Swatantra Party, a relatively new party, at one point of time, the chair had even made very public statement that if they would be in power, they would go to these countries abroad where the Nepal youth are working and then go into, having these pamphlets and posters asking young people to return home. So that was the kind of a narrative that, again, a counter narrative that was being given, that RSP, if it comes to power, will be in a position to bring these youth back home. But if you look at the numbers, it's not an easy task, of course, because in the RSP's formal document itself, that now we have it, because RSP came up with a promise paper as well. Its promise is to create 1.2 million jobs in 5 years. Now, 1.2 million jobs in 5 years would be the minimum that the country needs to absorb the new labor force. Forget about already, the people who are already abroad, for the new labor force. So even if the party will be able to create these 1.2 million jobs in 5 years, it can create jobs for the new youth, the new labor force, not the ones who are already living abroad, right? So, of course, politics is also about populism. It's also about, selling dreams to the youth. So that's one part of it. But even if that 1.2 million jobs could be created, that would be more than, much, much better than what the country is going through at present. Now, how to do this? How to create that 1.2 million jobs? So if you look at the economic part of the RSP's promises, the promise is to maintain 7% economic growth rate consistently for 5 years. And by doing that, its promise is to raise Nepal's per capita income to 3,000 US dollars. That's almost double than what it is now. And the size of the economy, the GDP, to nearly $100 billion. Now, to put this in context, Nepal's average GDP growth rate of the past decade, on average, is 4.2%. So only once in the past decade, perhaps it went up to 9%, but that was after the earthquake. And that's reasonable enough. Otherwise, Nepal's growth rate has been lingering at around 3 to 4%. So doubling that economic growth rate to 7% consistently for 5 years is a huge task. It's extremely challenging. That has to come from somewhere. And Nepal's GDP at current price currently is $44.8 billion, say $45 billion. So $100 billion economy is doubling the economic size in total. So that's a huge endeavor. So how can the RSP get to what it has promised, right? For that, we have to look at the sectors that the RSP has identified. And if you look at the sectors that the party has identified, it's nothing different from what has been identified for decades now, as usual. So these have been like the information technology sector because of the rising number of young educated Nepali youth, the construction sector, tourism, agriculture, mining, industry, services. In fact, if you look at all of this, I think it will cover all the sectors of the economy, right? And to bring about reforms in these sectors, of course, the sectors are already identified. And of course, no party can do a very new kind of a sector. Of course, they have to work with what's already there in terms of bringing out the reforms and getting the growth out of these very sectors. Three major approaches that the government wants to take, the RSP government wants to take is one is through governance reforms, of course, and that is the first mandate also, ending corruption, political interventionism, ending cronyism, creating a level playing field, a competitive economic environment for everyone. That's the first promise. That's one reform. Another one is legislative reform. It has long been actually identified, and there were many commissions also that had been put up earlier to identify what are the things that are holding back Nepal's growth potential. There are several legislation, very anachronistic ones, decades old, which actually have to be scrapped. Many have to be amended. These have been identified already. So RSP has promised that it will go on with scrapping these legislation that are completely old and which have been holding back the private sector, making amendments. It has already started this also, once it has formed the government. Another one is through tax reforms. And this has come out in the current budget as well. The RSP government has recently announced the first budget, because the new fiscal year is going to start soon. And like, for example, what it has done is in 273 kinds of raw materials, it has reduced import tariffs. And that is to give a fillip to the industry, to the manufacturing sector, by reducing tariffs on industrial raw materials. And it eliminated excise duties in 360 products. So, these are some of the kinds of things that the government has shown towards bringing out these tax reforms. But in terms of the sector-specific goals and reform measures, some of them are usual that we have been hearing for long. Some of them are abstract as well, and some are also questionable. I'll give you an example with agriculture. I'll not go into the details of all. Of course, we will not have time. Like in agriculture, the usual things, how does RSP government want to bring about growth in the agriculture sector and create jobs in the agriculture sector? It says it is through agriculture modernization, agriculture commercialization, that is through the use of technology and all. And I have been hearing these, reading these in documents for the past 75 years. Nepal's agriculture has been subsistence-based. This is not giving, returns. So it has to be commercialized. It has to be modernized. But what does this mean? How do you go about it? Because in Nepal, agriculture is such a multifaceted, complex issue that starts with the issue of land. You cannot just go on saying that you mechanize the farms and then you modernize the agriculture sector. There are a whole lot of problems. That's why for 75 years, you can see this in the documents, but nothing going forward. That is something that the RSP has to break. And I don't know how they are going to do it, but that's one thing. Another one, I find something abstract like is they say making agriculture a respectable profession. I don't know what that means and how to do it. Of course, the idea behind this is like youth are leaving agriculture, everyone is moving abroad, leaving the land fallow. So if you don't make agriculture a respectable profession, no one is coming back. Fine, but how? What does this mean? What is the government going to do? Make it respectable, right? Something abstract. And questionable thing, what I said questionable is, in Nepal's agriculture, one of the things that has always that has been identified, and this thing comes up in Nepal's debate often, is because Nepal has this bilateral trade treaty with India, with a reciprocal treatment on agricultural primary products, means Nepal's primary agricultural products go to India duty-free, quota-free. India's agricultural products come to Nepal duty-free, quota-free. So that's the kind of arrangement. And because, of course, India's agriculture is much more subsidized than Nepal's, so Nepal's agriculture is not able to compete with India's agriculture. So there has to be a change in what is there in the trade treaty between the two countries. Is something that has come for a very long time. Now, is it easy to do this? Because this doesn't involve only Nepal. It involves the two countries. And Nepal-India bilateral trade is not only about agriculture. It's a host of many different things. So can the government go about doing this? And can it, make amendments in the agreement so that it can actually reduce agricultural imports from India and make Nepal's agriculture competitive? And and does only doing that help Nepal's agriculture become competitive is another question. That's questionable. Another one that I saw in the budget speech that has come is they're also going to review the sensitive lists in SAFTA. Now, SAFTA is the trade agreement under SAARC. Now, SAARC has been in limbo. Of course, SAFTA is under operation, but there is no amendment, no change that's happening. Whatever SAFTA rules are there, based on that, some of the trade is going on. But to review the sensitive list is another, again, I mean, I don't find how the government is going to do this, because it's not something only that Nepal can do it. So there are some of these things which are questionable in terms of how it wants to go forward. So the challenge is, if you look at it from a trade perspective, is huge. Nepal's exports were $1.6 billion in the first 10 months, whereas imports were $11 billion. So that's a huge trade deficit. And even in this export, of course, I don't want to go into details, but 40% of the export in $1.6 billion is one commodity, soybean oil, that Nepal imports in crude form, does some refinement, and then it exports to India. So there are, many of these problems are there, and the country at times faces trade frictions with its largest trading partner, that is India. Even recently, there were some frictions in terms of Nepal's exports of tea to India. So what I mean to say is that things are not as easy as perhaps the government is thinking of, and the government knows about it. There are many complicated kind of issues that the government has to tackle in order to bring about these reforms. And the other important challenge that perhaps the government is facing is in terms of the West Asia crisis, because we all know we were hopeful the ceasefire might hold. It's not. So the country is already facing problems with the lack of adequate fertilizer in the paddy planting season. The monsoon rains have not been there on time, so only around 1/3 of the paddy plantation has been done so far. And agriculture is one major sector that contributes to Nepal's GDP as well, even though it's very small. But 25% of Nepal's GDP comes from agriculture. So how is the government going to address the issue of the lack of fertilizer, the lack of rains in agriculture? Things are not simple, if I would say it. Another very important thing, perhaps, that we have to take into consideration at the moment is there is a sense of fear among the private sector in Nepal. The private sector is not coming forth very openly. Although, if you look at it from a political point of view, a stable government, nearly 2/3 of majority, youth, which is saying that it's come there to fight corruption, create a level playing field, but the private sector is a little fearful and not coming forward. If you look, getting some of these ideas from the reports that are coming in, they are saying they just want to wait and watch before they go on with making further investments. And it's a very favorable time for the private sector actually to make further investments, because Nepal's banks are flush with liquidity at the moment because of this huge remittance receipt that's coming in. And the bank interest rates are really at the lowest level, I would say. So this is the right time actually for the private sector to make an investment. Money is there, interest rate is low, the government is stable, everything is there. But there is some fear. Why? Because the way that the government, I think, is going forward is not by following due processes. A government minister comes out in the public and says, if any contract in the construction works is not doing work, break his limbs. I don't care. That's the public statement the minister makes. And if he has something to ask some of the private sector players, he sends the police and gets them to the ministry. He doesn't summon them. So that kind of a fear psychosis that's with the private sector is an extremely concerning thing, because ultimately it's the private sector that has to drive the economy. Now, another indication of the lack of confidence in investors is, since the government formed, in the very beginning, first few weeks, I think, the stock market was going high, but now it is coming to such a low level now, no one is knowing what is happening with the stock market in Nepal. It's come to its lowest level. But one positive indication is the Prime Minister had not been reaching out to anyone, but since yesterday, he had started reaching out to the private sector people. So he called some of the private sector representatives to the Prime Minister's office, and they had a discussion. Private sector people who were there, the representatives said that they're a little hopeful now. I think he's going to have some discussion today with the construction people. So some of these indications that come in at times give some hope. But how long lasting will they be? How much of a due process will be followed? How much of that responsibility will be given to the respective ministries to perform the work, and the Prime Minister's office and his advisors not take a larger role becomes extremely important. And that is what the country is seeing at the moment. And there are also conflicting messages that is coming on from the government, actually, in terms of the government's participation in economic activities. I think Dr. Shah also said earlier that the government is going for reviving some of these, industries, very old industries, which are not performing. From the perspective of creating jobs, that might be okay, but are they really going to be competitive? The finance minister is someone I don't think who favors getting the government involved in economic activities, into production, into running factories. That has long been given up already. It has to be very, a regulator of the sort, a very good regulator, creating the field, putting in laws and everything, and then let the private sectors run. But there are conflicting coming with like some from the PM's office, from the industry ministry. Like the industry minister was, I think, she said that some of the budget has already been allocated to one of the textile industries, that the government-run textile industries, for its revival. Whereas the officials in the ministry, they were not aware of this. So that kind of a working modality that is being, taken forward, I think is not a good thing. Because when you have a stable government, if there are legislation that are holding things back, change it. The mandate is there. And give confidence to the people to follow due process. That is the thing to go forward with. It's not about one man, two men, three men, or a group of men, running the show. That doesn't work, I think. So that is one of the things perhaps that will be a challenge for the government itself. The government's focus is on, of course, expanding the middle class. This has come very clearly and categorically in the promise paper and also in the budget speech recently. That's why to expand the middle class, to focus on the middle class, what the government did through the budget is it raised the tax threshold substantially on the one hand. On the other hand, it raised public official salary tremendously. So what is going to happen now is these people now have had a double bonus. On the one side, salary is increased. On the other side, the threshold has decreased to an extent that I think that based on what Nepal pays to its government officials, perhaps not even the senior most official might not have to pay any income taxes now. And on the other hand, what the finance minister has done is there are some taxes now on private education. New taxes on private education, on healthcare, on electricity charges above certain units. So on the one hand, yes, the tax breaks are given, salary has been increased for government officials, and there are new taxes. Now, the middle class people who perhaps might enjoy and benefit from the tax concessions might be able to, yes, pay these new taxes and still be well off, right? But then there are also risks of these kind of approach giving rise to inflation. Inflation from the West Asian crisis and others are already there. The risks are already there. But even with the kind of policy that has been there are risks of inflation. So how are the low-income people going to, cope with all this? That's a big question. Of course, whatever the social security kind of measures were there, that has not been touched, so they will continue. And of course, no one expects the government to always come up with the kind of distribution programs without making the purse bigger. So, and what the finance minister has said is that let us first make the pie bigger, and that's the usual kind of a thing, right? The trickle down kind of an approach that has been going on, but now which have also been started being questioned that does trickle down really work? So that is a question that Nepal might also have to face with, because the emphasis right now is on liberal economic policy and equitable redistribution. But the thing is, unless the growth comes from the sectors where jobs can be created, the lower income people can be got into those sectors and they have income sources, the risks of, I think, the low-income people being left out are still there. And the challenge to the government in terms of going forward with the kind of reforms, I think, will still be challenging. Of course, I'm not saying that there are all hurdles. Of course, the government has a big mandate. The first thing is, if the government really controls corruption and goes on to good governance, that will already give a huge fillip. But I think that alone will not be enough. There are so many other different things that the government perhaps have to take care of. I'll stop here for the time being, Chair. Thank you if I took more time.
Thank you so much, Puspa. That was an excellent in-depth analysis. In fact, one of the best analyses that I have heard personally in recent times on Nepal's economic characteristics and issues involved. Thank you so much for sharing those insights. Now I move to the next presentation on the panel, that is by Dr. Pramod Jaiswal on Nepal's development diplomacy, linking internal priorities with external partnerships. And Dr. Jaiswal, as I mentioned before, he's a research director at the NIICE. He's also teaching at the Tribhuvan University, and he's a faculty at the Army Command and Staff College of Nepal Army. He also has had engagements with the US State Departments through the National Foreign Affairs Training Center and the Sandia National Laboratories, and is an alumni of the Near East South Asia Center, National Defense University at Washington, D.C. His engagements and collaborations in India include his being a senior fellow at the Institute of Peace and Conflict Studies in New Delhi. And he's also a senior research fellow at the Institute for National and International Security at Belgrade. He has been a strategic affairs editor and special correspondent with various media outlets of Nepal. He is an alumnus of the School of International Studies, Jawaharlal Nehru University, and a recipient of Silver Jubilee Scholarship and SARC Doctoral Fellowship from Indian Council for Cultural Relations, Government of India. Dr. Jaiswal, your presentation.
Thank you. Thank you, sir. It's indeed a pleasure to be at ISAS, and I'd like to thank the organizer for putting it as a joint panel. NICE is celebrating its 10th anniversary this year. February 28th, 2026 was the 10th anniversary. And since we had election in March, in February, we celebrated it in Kathmandu. We had another session in Delhi. We had engagement with a number of think tanks. We had 6 events in New Delhi to celebrate our 10th anniversary. We also had a dinner hosted for our participants and our partners. And ISAS has been one of the partners who decided to be in this region and talk about our past engagement, maybe the future engagements, at the same time express our gratitude that we have received in last 10 years. We were in Bangkok yesterday. We are going to Malaysia. So we're trying to reach to all the institutions that has supported in developing NICE the way we have developed it today. At NICE, we have a strong team of 7-8 scholars. We have 4 research center where you look at China, we look at neighborhood, we look at Indo-Pacific region, security, and we get lots of articles from the region. We get lots of support, lots of reach. Our YouTube is highly accessible, one of the most viewed YouTube channel in the region. We get thousands of click on articles. And we have hosted most of the leading IR experts who works on international affairs and other issues that we work on. From Mir Saimer, Stephen Wall, from Singapore, we have Kishore, we had Bilhari, we have got Cohen, Kresna, and many others. I had a presentation, but after listening to both the speakers, I decided not to use the presentation because much have been said. At the same time, much has also been left. So I thought, why not put it all together in perspective? You're all aware. I think for the first time, Nepal was covered, the changes in Nepal was covered in such a detail around the world. Otherwise, I don't know, many of you, if you have been following South Asia, I think Nepal for the first time was widely covered when we had a royal massacre, when the royal family of Nepal was killed or massacred. And then Maoist movement, then Republic. For the first time, in a great detail, proper follow-up was on Gen Z movement and the current election. the changes that happen in Nepal is very historic in number of ways. Never in the history of Nepal, a boy who is from southern plains, whose culture resembles more of with India, who are called Madesi, had been a prime minister. We have a 36-year boy who is from Madhes and he's a prime minister of Nepal today. He do not belong to a political party earlier. This guy didn't build a political party. He's a rapper. He's an engineer who studied in India. And he wrote in 2017, he wrote on his Facebook, I'm not going to vote in this election. In 17, we had election. After 5 years, I'll contest election and change the country because no one in this country know how to develop the country. So in 2017, he wrote that he's not going to vote. And after 5 years, he contested election as a mayor. He got majority, he won. And after that, he's a prime minister today. As I said, he did not have a political party. He joined a new party that way existed. And he joined that party just few months before the election. And whom did he defeat? He defeated Nepal's most powerful prime minister. KP Oli was one of the most powerful prime minister in last 10 years. And he went to his constituency and he defeated with the highest margin among all the leaders. So one boy without a party, 36 years boy who comes from Madhes, who has never been represented as a prime minister. At the same time, they are discriminated in terms of all that exists, political, economic, bureaucratic, everything. Their presence military is lowest. He becomes a prime minister with the highest margin. In his whole campaign of election, if you calculate all his speech timeline, it is less than 26 minutes. That means he don't give long speeches, long promises. He didn't make any promises and he became the prime minister. As I said, he didn't have a political party, he contested alone. And if you ask to majority of the people in the party who won election, he will say, I did not win the party because I did not win the election because of the party. I won election because of Balen. So this is a historic change. Now, how can it happen? In Nepal, people could not imagine that one party can have have a majority. Because in Nepal we have two types of system. We have one direct vote, which is called FTTP. One is proportionate. In that system, every political party is an expert who was proved wrong, like many of us, which said Nepal can't have a simple majority. So you'll have coalition government. But this time, this party has almost 2/3 majority. Not simple majority. And that's why we used to say, since we cannot have simple majority, we can't have stability. So many people used to say this constitution is to be changed. You can't have a stable government. Federalism does not function. Everything that we achieved so far was blamed at the time. So this is the change that we witness today. Now, what is the functioning process? Again, this prime minister, he goes to office 9 to 5. If you look at previous prime minister, there is a difference. Previous prime minister, if you look at their daily life schedule, he used to get up early in the morning. He used to address all the party members. They're flooded till the time to go to office. They're talking about party affairs. Then you go to office, bureaucracy, and all those. Then again, he doesn't care anything. He just go to office at 9. Before 9, he relax, he enjoys whatever all of us do. He just do the functioning that happens in the room of PMO, and he comes back and relax. He has no time to talk his party people. He has no time to talk his party president. And people question there are media reports that he don't even answer their phone. There was I don't know it's wrong or right. There was on social media that when the party president called him to, I'm not your girlfriend, I can't talk to you all the time. That was on social media. So this is a very unique way of functioning that you can see today. Earlier, Prachanda, early in the morning, all the, what you call businessmen, journalists, all are flooded, thousands of shoes in front of his houses in the morning from 6 a.m. to 9. Then they're all flooded in the office of Prime Minister office. Once they come back, before they come, all are lined up. But And he has said, I have no time to talk to any prime minister. I have no time to talk to Donald Trump's Sergio, who is in Hawaii. I'm not going to meet any one of them. I will just meet some of the important ministers. I'm not there for the photo shoot, no inauguration. I'm just spending 1 year on good governance. This is the year of governance, good governance, and I'll just focus on that. I'm not going to meet XYZ. I'm not going to do any food. I'm not going to travel anywhere. He has said that he's not going to travel anywhere. He has got lots of invitation from a number of countries. He's not traveling anywhere. He has said the foreign minister is supposed to do his duty. He has to perform. He has full autonomy. He can't perform. I can change it. It's not the duty of prime minister to look at foreign affairs. So that is a different way he's functioning at the moment. Now, in this whole process, let me again take you back. Why this all of historical change all of a sudden? People were very, very, very frustrated. In Nepal, we wish to think that what we don't have, we have a very good climate, we have a number of opportunities. Everyone in this world like Nepal. We have huge potential for tourism. We have huge potential for hydropower, and everyone in this world need hydropower. We have best relation with every country in the world. We can't find anyone enemies. Number of countries have number of enemies. There's no enemies for Nepal. We have performed quite well in terms of foreign policy. We have good relation with India. We have balanced relation with China. We have we had the best relation with Britain when they were in region. The first diplomatic tie with Nepal was with Britain in 1816. Before the birth of India and China, we got diplomatic tie with US in 1947. We have Gorkha regiment working in Singapore. I mean, there's no one that really hits. We are the first country in South Asia that supported the state of Israel in 1960. We are the first country, we remain the first country for 30 years in the region. On the issue of Ukraine, when India and China abstain, we stand with Ukraine. Even when US later backtracked on 25th February 2025, US said, oh, now we're not interested. Nepal still stand with that. So we thought we were doing quite well in terms of foreign policy. We are doing quite well. We have potential. Our youth are doing wonderful job around the world. So you can't say they're not so talented. They're all. What is that lacking us? And then they said it's corruption. Number of countries are flooding huge amount of resources. Just if you'll go crazy if you calculate the amount of money that comes to Nepal from the donors. In 10 years, if that, I mean, we would have been Singapore, and that is what everyone says, oh, Nepal should be Singapore. It's a model that, so they compare Switzerland. So corruption was the measure. And that's why the youth of Nepal, they started a movement on corruption. That brought a major change. And that's why our prime minister is focusing on good governance. He's not worried because he knows that, I mean, what will you do if you have $2 billion in this country? Nothing will happen because we have already got such millions and millions of dollars. But corruption has destroyed all our industries. During Cold War, we got East-West Highway. You saw the map earlier, it's long. The East-West Highway is one longest highway. And same highway was made by US and Russia together during Cold War. Same highway. If you drive, you'll enjoy. You'll say Nepal, USSR cooperation. After 1 hour, you'll say Nepal, US cooperation. And then again, Nepal. So we had done quite well in terms of managing foreign policy investment. So that's why that is one of the major reasons that the government is saying that let's work for 1 year of corruption. And that's why his priority is massive change in the whole structure. He has breached number of laws. He has changed number of laws. He has got number of ordinances, knowing that he has majority, he can get that. But he has promised that I will bring change immediately. So moment he became elected, on the same day a website emerged. Like whatever he had promised for 100 days, he started the tracker. So there are certain people in the government or who are supporting the party tracking every day. So you can find out what the government is. So that is most important. I'll give you one example. If you look at my driving license for Nepal, it expired in 2023. And till now, I do not have the new card. And it's a simple smart card which bank can give you in 5 minutes or in 2-3 days. In Nepal, it takes 4-5 years. I still using the old. To create one smart card which hotel, if you enter any hotel, they will put it in, enter details and you get it. But now this government has completed 2 months. So in terms of delivery, they are doing quite well. That is their major focus. In terms of corruption, control, zero tolerance. I mean, today everyone can say everything about the government. Everyone can say everything about the prime minister, but no one in this world, not on Nepal, can say that Balin is a corrupt person. And that people believe in. So that is the one. And that is creating environment for investment. Now, for 100 days was a honeymoon period, which expired just a week ago, I think. He did not did much. His major focus was on putting things on order. Just look at the number of people who are arrested so far. Some might be freed later, but no one can be arrested on same charge in the future because they will be having a fear that if you do this, you'll go to jail. So there is huge change in the country at the moment when it comes to good governance. Recently, there are news that government has put almost huge fine on traffic rules, almost 1,000 Singapore dollar, which is too high. And it is a discussion. But what has happened in 1 week, it's just 1 week that they announced that everyone is so much scared that they very strictly follow the rule. Now, tomorrow, I know that no one is going to pay $1,000. Obviously, there'll be some, it might come to 200 or maybe 100. But what has happened is that there is certain norms that are being set in the country that, you can't go away. Because earlier, I drive, oh, my uncle is a traffic police. You need a driving license, I'll call my brother. You need a passport, oh, my friend is there. You want a job in university, oh, my sister is there. So you used to have a political party, you used to have a friend, you used to have a relative, you used to have all those. Today, no. You are working in Prime Minister office, the police can very proudly issue a check note and it's all, they can record it and put it on social media. So this is the biggest change that I can see at the moment. Now, second, coming to Ministry of Foreign Affairs. Just look at the data of last 100 days and look at what has happened. You hardly used to get any foreign delegates talking on serious issues in Nepal, except India and China and a few years. You hardly used to see delegates coming from Australia, delegates coming from Europe, or major countries who has resources and interest, because they're not interested to invest in this country. But look at the number of meetings that the Foreign Minister is doing. Most of the meetings, 80% of the meeting are related to trade and investment. Let's take in the reverse order. Just a few hours ago, when I was on the way to this, the Minister of Foreign Affairs of UAE met our foreign minister. So it's a Minister of Foreign Affairs who looks at trade. It's a Minister of Foreign Trade and is meeting. We hardly used to get a minister from trade coming to Nepal. We used to get Minister of Foreign Affairs. Probably their main aim was to visit either Lumbini or Everest. But now you can see serious visits coming to Nepal where they're trying to look at foreign trade. For the first time, the Australian delegation who is looking at trade and investment is coming to Nepal. First time. That is the first delegation from Australia coming to Nepal in the history, talking about trade. South Korea is interested. Airbus has an MOU with Nepalese institutions for the first time in the history. France was hardly interested. ADB's chief is in Kathmandu today, and he promised $2.4 billion. Number of European countries. So for the first time, you can see that the focus of Nepal is on investment. That because the current government says that their foreign policy is all about development policy. I mean, whoever brings development, investment will engage. Even when the Prime Minister of India called the Prime Minister, he invited him, he did not go. He said, what's the agenda? So what is most important for the PM is that if you promise anything, it should have tangible outcome, and timeline is very important. Like in the past, okay, India will provide billions of dollars for maybe X infinite number of years. That is not very. Now they are very clear what you deliver, how you deliver, and when you deliver is very important. So we expect, obviously, think it's 100 days. I mean, these are signs that you can see, but we have seen that it is very focus oriented. They are very clear where they're heading to. They are very harsh, like previous speaker mentioned, that the way they are dealing with private companies and all, it's very harsh. But I mean, not all the fault goes to them, because initially we had a corrupt system. Maybe they might have used the corrupt system, and there are traces that they have done corruption. Many of them might get free. But what is most important is that tomorrow no one will have a courage to use that corrupt system, because all the political parties were funded by those systems and they're supporting them. So, I mean, that is how corruption works. So when you attack corruption, everyone is attacked. That's why today almost all the major leaders, all the former home minister are in jail today. So I think that will create a landmark change in Nepal that you can see. So this is internal. Internal, you can say, I think any Nepali, if you talk to, if you go to Nepal, you talk to experts, they might give you a different opinion. Because in Nepal, if you talk about all other parties, this party has 2/3 majority, and almost all the major parties are wiped out. So if you ask them, obviously they'll not be happy. If you ask the media, who are basically funded by the traditional parties, will not find good signs. If you talk to intellectuals and all the university professor, all you can only be a professor at the backing of the political party, they'll not be happy. But just as a common people, 99% people will say that there are some changes. There's some improvement. If today I went to certain office and they did not ask for money, and that is providing huge relief to the country. And that is it. Now, in this whole process, what is happening is that there is huge amount of enthusiasm among the people who are willing to invest in this country. I'll give you a few examples. The head of Marriott visited Nepal. And if you recall, during Genji, Hilton Hotel was burned. And Hilton Hotel was the newest hotel at that time. The most recent, most beautiful hotel, which has not even celebrated its anniversary, was burned down. Now, who would be stupid to invest in a country where Hilton Hotel is burned and a Marriott comes and want to invest in an extra luxury hotel? And as per the media report, they claims that this should be the most luxurious hotel that do not exist in whole South Asia. This is media report. You can Google it. So who will be that stupid that Hilton Hotel, the most recent hotel, is burned during Genji? Your investment is not secure, and the head of Marriott is coming to Kathmandu, and they are promising that I want to make an extra luxury hotel, and number of other hotels are coming up. Bhaktapur is a very cultural town, very loved by tourists. In this whole town, there is not a single 5-star hotel. Marriott is coming with another hotel there. So if you look at recent data in last few years, huge number of American hotels are coming in the country. And that is because the government priorities are delivered. So now, where do government look at? I think recently, at the moment, I think our government is looking at 3 major factor areas. Obviously, governance, it's very clear, zero tolerance. Anything that goes on corruption will be not tolerated. Second is economy, because again, that is very important. There are 3 sectors that is getting major focus. One is hydropower, because Nepal has huge potential. We can produce 40,000 megawatt of electricity, and till now we have produced only 4,500, so almost 10%. Even in that 10%, we're exporting some to India, some to Bangladesh. We're making profit out of it. So we see huge potential through exporting hydropower. And you'll be surprised with the number of EVs in the country in last 2-3 years. Second, data center is a big buzzword there. People believe that there's a huge opportunity for data centers, ITC and tech companies. So that is where government is focusing on, because we don't want to only sell our hydropower, but also consume to have other products, which data center can be a product. So we are trying to focus on that. Tourism, as I said, number of 5-star hotels are coming up, number of airlines. 2 airports are there in this country, in Nepal, which is non-functional. Many of you might not have heard, one in Lumini, one in Pokhara. So we're trying to functionalize those. So in this whole process, there's huge enthusiasm in the region that we are showing today. Now, let me come to the last part, which is external factor. Now, let me put the 3 major factors. How do India, China, US look at this whole change? Let me start with China, because it's short. China is really worried. The only country that is much worried about the changes in Nepal is China, because the government who was replaced by Genji was a left party leader. KP Sharma Oli comes from a left party, highly trusted. At one point of time, there are media reports that China played a role to bring other forces to make left party stronger. So that left party is no longer in power, and they're irrelevant at the moment. And that's why China is really worried, because they have lost all the contacts that they have in Nepal. At the same time, there are media reports that the role of 3A was very important during the whole Gen Z movement. One was army, second algorithm, three America. And all these three might have American connections. That is what media report says, because army enjoys good relations, algorithm, US has control, and America itself. So, and there are also news that some Tibetan organizations were also involved. They're all written in media. So that puts some risk, some concern on China. China is a bit worried, but China have started engaging with the new forces. Within a month, China signed a ring road expansion project. So every month, China have one successful project in since the government. So they have already done 2-3 wonderful job with the current government. They are worried. They are engaging strongly with the youth, because as earlier speaker mentioned, almost 60% of the people who got elected are first time elected as a member of parliament, and they are below 40. In the whole cabinet, only 2 is 51 plus, 50 plus. All are below 40. So obviously there are young people, they are learning, but they're engaging. China is engaging with every one of them. So China is one factor that has concern. India is mixed, because for the first time in the history of Nepal, India has played a major and India has played a major, remarkable role. India has made a decisive role in all the major political transitions of Nepal. A previous speaker talked about Rana regime, overthrow of monarchy, restoration of democracy, or putting Maoist from jungle to mainstream, means ending the armed revolution. In all these political change, India has been a major decisive player. Without India's support, it was impossible. But the first time in the history, this Gen Z movement, India was shocked. That means India probably didn't have a role, or India was not aware. So India is concerned that how this young guy will communicate, how they will engage and all. But at the same time, India is also comfortable, because these new forces, they don't have any ism. They don't believe in communism. They don't believe any kind of ism that can scare any others. They just say development diplomacy. Whoever want to develop Nepal, come. And India is a major development provider to Nepal. India is almost 80% trade with India. All the major development projects comes from India. So when India also want to have more economic engagement, more connectivity, more trade, India thinks that this young chap can be opportunity for them. So India is not very worried. They're just concerned that these young people, they might, how they would be. At the same time, the signaling was not very good, because he said, I don't want to meet the Prime Minister. Prime Minister said, I don't want to go visit India. That is not my preference. So that has also put some alarm on India. So India is a bit concerned, but at the same time, the advantage is that these old parties these parties don't have any baggages. They have not abused India, because if you look at the communist parties, everyone has become a leader abusing 1952 treaty with India or something with India. That is how nationalism comes in the country. So, but these do not have that. So that is one advantage for India. For US, US see current government as opportunity, because US had huge struggle when it was trying to get its MCC approved. MCC is $500 million grant, which has been inflated recently. And it's a grant which US was giving $500 million for free to Nepal. And left parties of Nepal were objecting to that. Oh, no, we don't want that. US wanted, it's for free, but because of China pressure, Nepal government was not, the left party not willing to. Later on, it got passed. It was approved. So since then, US realized that it's very challenging for them to engage the left party. That's why they think this new force is an opportunity for them to restart the engagement. So that they're very comfortable. As I said, number of hotels from US is willing to open in Nepal, data center, all investments are. But one of the major factors is that with US, it comes a number of alliances that comes to Nepal. For example, Japan has become very assertive in terms of investment in Nepal now. ADB coming to $4 billion. It's all because of the confidence that has come from the situation. EU is coming together. South Korea. I also heard Singapore is now interested. So I think because of US, because of stability and all, many people are now comfortable and they're confident they can invest in the country at the moment. So if you look at the overall situation, if you look at minute details, you think that everything is chaotic. Suppose there is no traffic light on the road, all of a sudden the power is off. What will happen? Oh, then but moment there is power on, what will happen? It will, so I think when there's new guys, very young people, they might have done mistakes, they might not know how to handle properly, they don't have experience, but they're going in the right directions because there are a team of people behind them who really want to see Nepal changing. As I said, they're all supported by diaspora. The major force, that the power that comes from them, like algorithm is the one that diaspora played. So people are now willing to say that, oh, it's the right time for them to go to Nepal and invest. Diaspora is trying to help them. If you look at, as the previous speaker said, that 15,000 political appointment cancelled. 1,500 political appointment cancelled. They're all picked up by the party. And they said 1,500 all cancelled. Now it came from merit. So imagine that you had 1,500 party cadre ruling the party country. Now we have 1,500 technocrat, or you can say expert. I think it will make a change. But obviously, you might think that how can you do that? And they are constitutionally not formed and all. So there are what you call reservations, because as I said, the traditional forces are getting challenged. But I think we are hopeful as a youth. I think, that is the only way we can look at it, because what we have achieved so far. What are we going to lose? Last 25 years, we got 25 government. No one is ready to invest. What worse can go at the moment? So I think things are getting better. I think we need to wait for a few months, but just follow the symptoms, and I think that will give you good signs. We expect that there'll be more positivity in the country. There'll be more investment, more employment. And on top of that, I think what has happened is that most important is stability. As I said, the average life of the government was 1.5 years. Now this government has a span of 5 years. Even if they walk very slow, they're running too fast. Our Prime Minister says that we are on an expressway. And the only statement he gave earlier was that a road that can be constructed in 2 years takes 20 years. It should complete in 1.5 years. That's why he had made one important law, and I think people in Singapore should know about it. All the major infrastructure, if it is 5 years, it will take 20 years. And one of the reasons was that the project used to go to the lowest bidder. So when you're the lowest bidder, it will go to Chinese. So first they'll bid lowest, and every year they keep on inflating, because you just have to bid. After you bid, you don't have to rebid. So next year you will double it. Next year you'll double it. So there's no interest in any contractor to complete the project, because if you delay it, you'll get double the money. So now they're changing certain ordinance where you can get, it can go, they're not questioning the lowest bidder, they're going on quality and time. So if someone can complete in 2 years, another will take 5 years, the one who can complete in 2 years will get it. So quality and time is very important. So moment you will say quality and time, I think better companies, better investor, better opportunities will come to Nepal. Because in the name of what you call lowest bidder, we had like worse road that could not even last for 5 years. Infrastructure never was complete, and the cost that people had to bear was not calculated. So I think these are few changes. I'd like to interact more through Q&A. So I think I'll wrap it here. Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Jaiswal. And I think we have now had 3 very exhaustive presentations on various dimensions of Nepal, the political transformation it has undergone, the economic challenges, and the foreign policy aspects. So maybe without wasting much more time, I'll just open the floor for questions. Do please identify yourself and indicate if you want to ask a particular panelist. Yes, Pranjoy.
Since there were no hands yet. So, I just had a very quick question. Of course, stability has its downsides and upsides, and we've seen that not just in Nepal, but other contexts. And you rightly mentioned that you had 14 prime ministers in 15. But would you also say that stability and a kind of one-party dominance that you have currently also lends itself to degree of authoritarianism and populism? Populism not in the sense of popular measures, but populism in the sense of undermining institutions, undermining norms, structures, which in the long run, maybe there might be some immediate gains, but as we have seen in other contexts, can have deleterious effects on a polity in general. Just quick question for any. And another thing, you were talking about the satisfaction of the people. So post-election, the election of course was a resounding victory for the party. Post-election, have there been any surveys done which meet sort of international standards? Again, admittedly, it's an early stage, expressing what you said, that 99% of the people are satisfied. So are there any sort of empirical evidence of that?
Coming to authoritarianism,
Can I just stop you for a second? I think what we will do is we will take 2 more questions and then we can come back to the questions to be addressed. Yeah. So I see Dr. Shaunak Seth and Roshni.
Hi, thank you for all the panelists for beautifully laying out all the internal dynamics of Nepal, which even if we have been observing from the outside, we usually don't get to see so much of details. I'm Shaunak from the Rajaratnam School of International Studies from the South Asia program. I have 2 specific questions which any of the panelists can take up. My first question is related to foreign policy. Earlier in South Asia, given the frustration of SARC, there was an emphasis on multilaterals like BBIN, Bhutan, Bangladesh, India, Nepal for connectivity and economic development, therefore. Now, the political landscape in Bangladesh has gone through a massive change. What is the thinking in Nepal about this kind of minilaterals? That's my first question. My second question is something much more sectoral and internal concerning defense policy, which is the issue of Gurkha recruitment in the Indian army has become a bit of a consternation in the bilateral relations between the 2 countries following India's following the Agniveer model and so on. And on the Indian side, there has been this thinking that it's also the previous Nepal government was backtracking from addressing the issue meaningfully. What does the new government think of it, particularly given in the context that where the recruitment of Gurkhas used to happen historically, like for instance in the British Army, those numbers are actually coming down over the years. So how does this play out? Has the new government some thinking on this? Thank you.
Roshni?
Hi, thank you so much for the presentation. So there's been a lot of focus about this good governance and corruption. Have there been discussions also about enacting, let's say, like a Right to Information Act or setting up a Right to Information Commission? In the case of Bangladesh, I think there has been some cross-country discussions on how they can have something similar or draw inspiration from Sri Lanka's own experiences when the Palana, when the good governance government introduced it. So has this been something in terms of providing empowerment or access to citizens, and if Nepal could draw this discussions, from the other countries as well?
So we have 4 questions till now, if I take 2 from Shaunak. One is beginning with Ranuja's question on the downsides of stability and the institutional effects, then the connectivity question, and then the recruitment in the army, and the Right to Information Act. So can we then divide this between the panelists, and maybe Dr. Jaiswal, would you like to address the question of stability, the first question?
The question on authoritarianism, in Nepal, should we be worried when we have 2/3 majority, strong government in power? It can lead to authoritarianism. But today we are more worried about the chances of party splitting. In Nepal, even if there's one party, we look at 3. This pencil is 3 in Nepal, because if it is Prachanda's party, which is Nepal Communist Party, there will be Baburam Bhattrai, there will be Prachanda, and there will be Baidyar. When you say KP Oli's party, there is KP Oli, there is Madhav Nepal, and there is Jhanad Khanal. So in every party there are factions. Even today, as I said, the Prime Minister is from RSP, which is the ruling party, but the party chairman is someone else, and he do not have any strong hold in the party. So I don't think in Nepal authoritarianism can exist. I think Nepal is the only country in South Asia probably that authoritarianism can never exist because it's so fragile, it's so diverse in terms of ethnicity, in terms of everything, that it is almost impossible to have authoritarian. Because if you look at the particular character, at the same time, we have support, we have a strong civil society. Look at Nepalese media. I think one of the most vibrant in whole South Asia. Civil societies, these engagements are very strong. You'll not hear about journalists being arrested or something like that. You're as vocal as well. So I think we don't see those possibilities at the moment, and even in future. I mean, they can have authoritarian tendencies, which can be temporary, but it will not last for long. Second, public satisfaction that I say is very just perception based. There is not data based, but I'll give you one aspect to it. All the changes that happened in Nepal were just in 2 days. Huge changes. A strong party was overthrown in 2 days. That was a huge anger. And that's why we're telling to the new forces, tomorrow, if such a huge party who have played an important role in Nepal's political transformation, you look at KP Oli's party, CPN UML or Maoist, they had decades of armed revolution, all has a political history. They have contributed to Nepal's political change. If they can be thrown in 2 days, and if you don't perform, you can be thrown out in 2 seconds. Because they have a long history. They have a party structure from top to bottom, and they have contribution. You might not like KP Oli, you might not like Prachanda, you might not like Deuba, but they have contributed Nepal's in the history, So that is one. Second, during the Gen Z, hundreds of houses are burnt. And I've been joking with them, like next time, if there is something like that, they'll not only burn the houses, they will even burn the politicians. If you keep these 2 things in mind, you can succeed.
Can I move to Puspa for the question on BBIN?
Well, I think I don't have a long answer to that because with the BBIN, of course, I think you might also know, even with the previous government, when things were, whether you call it stable or unstable, there were issues with the multilateral itself because I think Bhutan, it pulled out of the motor vehicles agreement within the BBIN because it had its own concerns. But it had said that the 3 countries can go ahead with the implementing it, right? And I think India said that Nepal was not responding finally to the final agreement that was already there, and that was because in Nepal there were concerns from the transport entrepreneurs, because with the implementation of the MBA, they were fearful that the competition that they might have to face from Indian transport entrepreneurs might be a huge blow to them. That's why it was not moving forward. Now, in the current context, as you rightly said, that the relationship between India, Bangladesh, strained to some extent, I would say, perhaps. It's not the same as before. So I don't think none of the countries, perhaps at the time, are thinking about it. And in Nepal, as the previous speaker said, the whole focus is on governance for the first year. So who would think about BBI? No one.
Thanks, Pushpa. Dr. Shah, would you like to reflect on the 2 other questions that came?
Maybe I'd like to address those.
Like, sure he won't want to.
Yeah, that is what he said. Because on Gorkha regiment, like we send our Gorkha people as per the agreement that exists since like 1816 or something like that. So Nepal government said that when you have a new scheme, Nepal and India has to have a new signatory. They should discuss that. You can't have, for India, obviously you can do that. But when you're recruiting someone from other countries, when you have new scheme, you should have a new kind of agreement, because Nepal said that like if you have huge amount of youth going to India as Agnibir coming back, there'll be huge amount of youth who will be militarized in one sense. They will know how to use weapons and all that can be a risk to the country. So that there can be different other that was the. So that is what Nepal stands said, that if you want to have new, we should have a new agreement. Second, at the same time in Nepal, some political party were against Gorkha recruitment. They said that it is to happen during British, so now we should not send our people to fight in a foreign source land. So that's why I don't see a chances of new agreement taking place. Now, on the other side, India is also not willing to give some relaxation. I mean, that the one way out could have been said, okay, like maybe for Gurkha, certain amount of people will take them as it used to happen. So that has not happened. So I think I'm not government of Nepal, so I can't say what is the Nepal's stand. I have never heard Nepal's government making a statement on this. But I think one can be that either Nepal India sign an agreement, which I don't see likely, but maybe India can give some relaxation to certain number of people only from Nepal, because I think it's one of the strongest soft power for both the countries, and the prestige that comes to Nepal through regiment and the soft power that we get around the world is immense. So I think we should continue those kind of recruitment. Maybe India can have some relaxation, or maybe because India is not, I mean, India is taking 25% of those, whom they recruit at regiment. So I think maybe from Nepal it can be 100% or well. So I don't know how they'll resolve, but that is what we have been talking to Indians. Like maybe that can be the one solution for that. Okay.
There was a question on RTI.
On RTI, as I said, where governance is a major said, the current government is working in a very closed door. Maybe, and there are very limited information that comes out. No one is allowed to make much a statement. There is very strict protocols these days, so they're not much information. But I think there will be, obviously, when you talk about governance, RTI is very important. So they must be working on that. But I don't have exactly the situation that where Nepal stand on RTI at the moment.
Usman?
Well, I think Rosni's question was on the Right to Information Act, right, and the Commission. Nepal already has it. Nepal already has the Right to Information Act and a commission that is already there for a long time now. And several organizations and individuals have also used the Right to Information Act to get several information from the government earlier as well.
Drew inspiration from, they had discussions with Sri Lanka, so that Nepal.
Maybe I'm not very sure of that, but what I am sure of is that because the RTI Act is there and the commission has been there, I don't think they are perhaps going to go any further because it's already exists over there, right? So if there are any shortcomings in the Act itself, or I mean, the government can always make changes in the people who are in the commission. That would be a different thing. But since it's already there, I think that's a done thing. That's what I think.
Thank you for that. So 3 further questions from this side. Ivan, in this order. Okay, Ivan, you go first.
The former governing parties in Nepal, and my question is to Mr. Dr. Shah and Sharma. Essentially, do you see possibility for generational change there? Do you see possibility for renewal, or do you think that they are destined to further sink in the future? Because there are already signs of some generational change, even before the elections, as we know. And my second question is about China using Nepal as a potential. And my second question is about China using Nepal as a potential re-export destination for India, because I recently was contacted by a prominent Chinese journalist who wanted actually to inquire about Nepal serving as kind of the key stepping stone for a Chinese strategy for export towards South Asia. And obviously they were interested in in the fact that Nepal and India obviously have a free trade arrangement and no quota arrangement. So how do you see the possibilities of this and the limitations also? Because obviously on the Indian side, probably there will be substantial concerns about this. So how do you see this? Thank you.
Please.
Thank you, Chair. I'm Dr. Neha Sinha. I'm associated with the Vivekananda International Foundation India and working as a research fellow with the Vishwaniti Foundation India. So thank you for the very informative, enlightening, and beautiful presentation from all the speakers. My question limits to the diaspora network. We know that there are around 2.6 million Nepalese diaspora across the globe. It's spread in almost 100 countries. How did the diaspora network respond to the Gen Z uprising? What was the role, contribution of the diaspora that we see? How do you assess their contribution? How they have responded towards the political transition that has taken place in Nepal? So how do you assess that? Thank you.
Thank you, Sandeep.
Thanks. I have one question for Dr. Jaiswal and one for Pushpa. Dr. Jaiswal, I was struck by the fact that when you were talking about NICE, you said that you look at China and you look at the neighborhood. China is not being part of neighborhood. So I was just wondering if you could talk about Nepal's geographical conception of what is neighborhood and what is not. And also that you made those decisions, I imagine NICE was founded 10 years ago, right? If a think tank were to be created today, would it have similar geographical conception or would China appear in a different way? Or, I mean, is the geographical conception changing in that way of what is neighborhood and what is not? And Pushpa, this idea of Nepal's economy being too dependent on remittances has been a problem for 100 years now, right? And what is the alternative vision for what can happen, right? Like there's this idea of hydroelectricity being the solution that Dr. Jaiswal also mentioned, which is also something that has existed for 100 years, that discussion. I understand even British colonial times, there were engineering surveys done of dams being created and electricity being sold to India. Why hasn't that happened? I suppose that's a little complicated question, but still, yeah.
Thank you, Sandeep. I think since we are at 4:45, unfortunately, we won't be able to take more questions, but obviously the panelists will respond. So, Dr. Jaiswal, would you like to start?
Thank you. The first question was China using Nepal maybe as an entry point or maybe to create inroads to India. Actually, Nepal and India has very special relations. We have open border, which means you can go around without any passport and a visa. We have very deeper ties, cross-border marriages, 80% trade, and all those. Very strong engagement with the military and security. We depend hugely on India. Our people get trained in India, and almost every household at one point in time is to have someone who is studied in India. So if you look at the relations so deep that maybe China will not be able to use Nepal as a entry point to India. Second, at the same time, Nepal makes it very clear that we do not want to use our soil against any of our neighbor, which means India, basically. So there is deep trust. As I said, we have very strong political relation, economic, all kind of relation that exists with India. So I think China, is not at that level that they can really use Nepal against India, because when you have open border, everything is so integrated, intertwined. If we two are connected by intestine, like whatever, if I eat something, he will get sick. So this is the type of relation that exists. Because when you say open border, if something happens here, he will have impact if something. So that's why we have very strong engagement, and we know the type of relation that India and China enjoys. That's why that makes us to be more alert on that issue. If it is, because we know that everything that we do with India or China, we make sure that we don't hurt each other, or more with India, that when you do something with China, we want to make sure that China is not hurt. That's why in 2017, we signed MOU and BRI. 2017. It's almost 9 years. Not a single project on BRI has implemented. So this is just to give you an example. Now, China and neighborhood, in NICE, India comes under neighborhood. And many of my Indian friends are not very happy. I said, if you have China studies, you should have India studies. And I said, yes, there is no harm in having India studies, but we take India as a very special case when we look at India in a greater perspective. When you talk about BBIN, when you talk about Nepal, Bangladesh, India trade, when you talk about Nepal, India, there are different issues. China is completely different. You study China, though China is a neighbor, the engagement is very far. We are between Nepal and China, there's the world's highest mountain. Highest mountain, and those walls has not been yet penetrated. And it's very challenging to have railway from China to Nepal, road from China to Nepal. We tried in 62 and till now we have not succeeded to have connectivity to China. We have different culture, different language, different political party, different understanding, all are very different. So it's not possible to see China from a very neighborly perspective, though it's a neighbor. Rather it's easy to that's why it's easy to come to many countries. Thailand or maybe Singapore can be more neighborly for us than to China. If I come to Singapore, I'll not miss my food, I'll not miss my the language will not scare me. I can be more comfortable, I can go around. But if you in China, if you don't know the language, you can get lost. So there's a big difference when you talk about though it's a neighbor, it's a bit quite far for us. And in that context, we put India, that India is, we study more like a neighbor, where not only Nepal, India, but talking about India is to go more like BBI and Bangladesh, Sri Lanka. So in neighborhood, we focus more on India, Bangladesh, Sri Lanka, and Bhutan. We don't touch Pakistan, Afghanistan, or even Maldives. Okay.
Do you want to talk about the diaspora question?
Maybe.
How did the
I think.
How did the diaspora react to the Gen Z developments? You want to contribute?
Maybe he can address the old party, future of old party.
Okay, please take that question.
Thank you for the question. A concern of political parties, we have Election Commission Act also. Whenever the elections comes before like 3 months or 6 months, they give notice to register the new parties, and they do that one. If you see number of parties are in Nepal, like they come with some religion wise, like caste wise, or like area wise, okay, and a lot of voices will rise. And the oldest party in Nepal is Nepali Congress, and then like UML, again protest was there, then UML formed, again Maoist was there. RSP, what Rastriya Swatantra Party has emerged, we can say it emerged highest vote not as a political party. The face they had actually, the Balin, who is our honorable prime ministers, people saw the face. They go with the, like Balin will be the face for the prime ministers. So whichever the elected MPs are there, they even feel the voters have not voted us, they have voted for the Balin. So in future, the competitor, like other parties also are making changes. Like if you talk about the Nepali Congress, the Gagan Thapa, he also tried to make the changes before election. He did a convention, and then in the middle of the like things, he became the president of the Nepali Congress. He tried that changes from long back actually. Let's say like 2 years back or 3 years back, but he could not do. Finally, in the just before the election, he had able to do, but that message has not went to the all the people. People might feel that Nepali Congress, like led by Gagan Thapa, still the, if you see the Nepali Congress has like divided, still he has not came in the proper. Some like senior politician are one way and then junior are other way. So still the confidence has not came. And if you see the RSP, what the RSP has got, the voters are from the Nepali Congress also, communism also, and then monarchy, who believe monarchy also have voted, because they need a change in the sense of youth also. So that is the scenario, how the next will move with the Balin. Okay, one thing is that. And second is like Nepali Congress or like communism, how they will move with the new vision, new strategy. Obviously, anti-corruptions, first one. Second is good governments, job employment, how they can make the people trust. Once this has been labeled to the citizens, definitely rise up of parties or the sink of the parties depend on this strategy only. Thank you.
Puspa, then 2 questions, if you'd don't mind addressing. Yeah, one specific one was on remittances and also the diaspora. Yeah, and
Ivan also, I think, had asked question to me as well.
Asked the question of, I think, both the generational change in the population.
Yeah, China has.
Yeah,
exports. Thank you, Chair. I think I'll take some time because I have a number of questions to address.
You will have the last word.
Thank you. Let me go with Ivan's question. The first one, future of old party, generational change. See, if you look at Nepal's politics, actually, this time, as of course the previous speaker said, the change happened in 2 days. That's why it came to be seen as something historic, transformational. That's true. And sometimes I tend to ask myself, if the 2 days of protest that we saw in Nepal had not been that violent in terms of the people going on with burning government buildings, Supreme Court, and all that, would it have happened so soon? I tend to ask this to myself. And I mean, when we look at things, perhaps things are never only too rosy or too concerning. There are always like mixed messages that we get out of the situations, right? Whether it were with the like old regime in the past or even with the new government. Because now there are some study reports that are coming out. The latest one is by the National Human Rights Commission. There's a huge debate going on about the findings of that commission. The commission has categorically said that of the several people who had incited the violence at that time, more than 20 are now MPs and also are in the government from the RSP. Perhaps these are things that should not be brushed aside. That's why, although it's historic in terms of the change that happened, what I'm trying to say is there are several caveats to it that we have to take into consideration. One thing. The other thing is, this is not the first time Nepal has got nearly two-thirds government. Nepal has got a two-thirds government in the past as well, few times. But they didn't last long. Why? Because of internal squabbles in the party. I mean, the one is not very too old, actually. It was very recent. The two communist parties, they came together and there were two-thirds, nearly two-thirds at the time as well. And people were happy that at least now Nepal has got a nearly two-thirds government, a stable government. This will force the other parties also to reform within themselves, but that didn't last long. So what this also shows is the political parties in Nepal, they do have their own kind of cadres and members, but the rest of the Nepali people do not get stuck to individual political parties. They have always made their preferences changed based on the circumstances and their aspirations. They have voted for the Nepali Congress, they have voted for the communist parties, and now they have voted to the RSP. And you rightly said, the force and the compulsion for changes within the political parties have been there for quite some time. And in some of the parties, that has also led to a generational change, as in the Nepali Congress particularly. Gagan Thapa had been trying to do this for long, yes, of course. But what also gave him that impetus to make it happen this time was the Gen Z movement, no doubt about that. Because to make that change in the party also, you need the support of the party members, right? If it had not been for what Nepal went through in the current Gen Z movement, and if he had not been able to get the support of party members to convene in special convention, he wouldn't have been able to do that. But what that shows is, I mean, there are forces already and they are compelled to do that, and that's happening as well. So what will happen to these old parties? We don't know. The new government is only 3 months old. It has got a 5-year mandate. It remains to be seen how the government will function in this 5 years' time, how much of a trust it will be able to win from the people, and whether the people will be ready to go with it or then rebirth, because that has been the story of the past. It's not that the story always repeats itself. So if this government will do better, I think the old parties will have a big kind of a fight from them, and then perhaps they will have to struggle for the survival. If not, Nepal might again go back to the same story of, again, revivals, and then, the new ones not doing it, let's go to the old ones. So that's perhaps my answer to your question, Ivan, the first one. The second one, China using Nepal as a potential re-export seat. Nepal has always been inviting investment from all the countries around the world, including China, right? And with India, based on the bilateral trade treaty, it's not that Nepal can export anything to India freely. There are conditions, right? Like the value-added condition is there. 30% value addition has to be there. So if Chinese investment comes to Nepal, Nepal adds 30% value addition and sends to India, I don't think India will object to it because that's based on the treaty itself. But if it is something that Nepal imports from China and exports it to India directly, Nepal doesn't have to do anything. India will just stop that outright. That's for sure, because the treaty doesn't allow that. You see, I mean, I think there was a case recently, a few months ago, that Nepal's export of iron products, if I'm not wrong, were also stopped, or India had questioned that because the raw materials had been sourced from China. Whereas the value addition thing doesn't apply to raw materials, right? You import the raw materials, you add value to it, create something out of that, and then you export. And if there's a 30% value addition, then you are meeting the criteria. So there was something on that raw material part as well. So if things on like raw materials can also spark that kind of an interest, then I mean, just indulging in re-exporting of final product only, I think will not work. So it has to be pure investment, setting up establishments in Nepal, producing something, adding value, and then exporting to India. That would be perhaps a good thing for all three countries. That's how I would see it. Thank you. On the diaspora's network, Neha's question, diaspora played a huge role this time, of course. They were hugely in support of the RSP of Balendra Saha, yes. And you see, even in Nepal, I mean, these people, they're young people living abroad. Now, there were reports that were coming in that these people were calling back their parents, calling their parents back home, because many of these older people, especially, they would have allegiance to some parties. They would have voted for the party for long, so they wouldn't be, ready to change it. But then the diaspora network, particularly people living abroad and then, vouching for the new party, a new government that they wanted to see, they called their parents and said, if you don't vote for RSP Balen, money is not going to come. That was a kind of a message that they were giving to their parents as well. So diaspora, of course, had a huge role in what RSP actually, got that success. Sandeep's question to remittances, yes, I mean, remittances has been there, and particularly, I think your reference is to Nepal's youth again going into the Indian Army, to the British Army, and Nepal has been receiving this for long. But the nature of remittances that Nepal has been receiving in the past 20-25 years has been very different, because this is coming mainly from people living in the Middle East and, like, as Neha said, like 100 countries. So the nature has been very different. So what's the solution? That's the difficult question. If I would see it, I mean, sometimes I tend to think about this. Will Nepal be able to absorb all its youth by itself? I don't see the possibility. That's not possible. So what we have to see now is, in a globalized world, in an aging society in several of the countries elsewhere, where there is huge demand for youth now, perhaps countries like Nepal will fulfill that. And that has to be perhaps the modality. Youth going abroad, receiving remittances should not just be an emotional thing and something to be politicized on. Because what has to be understood is that when you cannot do it in the country, if it is not possible to do it in the country only, at least countries like Nepal have to be happy that the world has become like a one kind of a place. There is demand somewhere, and Nepali youth is being able to serve over there, at least get a job and get that income, which has been helping Nepal's education, health, and many other things for their family. So that is how perhaps things need to be seen. If not, if any government, whichever government comes in power, with a rhetoric that we will bring back all the youth and get everyone employed in Nepal, that will just be for the sake of populism and politics, nothing more than that. That's my view. Thank you.
Thank you, Puspa. We couldn't have had a more solid last word on this subject, but I'm sure there will be more last words to follow as we continue the conversation. I think that we have some tea, coffee waiting for us outside. But before that, before I bring this to a close, I'd especially like to thank our guests, Dr. Jaiswal and Dr. Shah, and of course, Dr. Puspa, for this fascinating conversation. Thank you very much. And I look forward to catching up with you all again. Take care.